So, do you ever wonder, why do directors and cinematographers choose the camera angles, camera distances, lighting, and framing choices that they do? Why are films constructed the way they are? Is there, as William Shakespeare might say, a method to the madness? Or are they just random cinematic choices? Is there a rationale to filmmaking, a common language? In a word, dear viewer, yes. Yes, there is. In this short video, I'm going to cover a few types of camera shots and angles, briefly look at the rule of thirds, and more generally explain the overall logic behind cinematography by introducing a few key terms, especially cinematic invisibility and cinematic language. For this video, I'm drawing a lot of my information from the textbook Looking at Movies, An Introduction to Film, which I would highly recommend if you're interested in learning more about how movies are made. Let's start with a few statements. What do the following sentences mean? I look up to them. Based on her actions, we can't help but look down on her now. We're looking for someone close to him to convey this message to him. Everything feels topsy-turvy and out of whack. I'm so confused. Each of these statements includes metaphors connected to physicality. Look up, look down, close to him, and topsy-turvy. When we say we look up to someone, we don't actually mean that we physically look up to them. We mean that we admire them, respect them, and try to imitate them. But why do we phrase it that way? Well, it's certainly connected to how children, diminutive as they are, physically look up to their parents, but those children are also psychologically looking up to them. When we say we're close to someone metaphorically, it doesn't mean we're physically close, but physical proximity is where we get the metaphor for our psychological terminology. And when things are askew, topsy-turvy, or cattywampus, they are not quite right. They are, in cinematic terms, like a Dutch angle shot. What's that? I'll let you know before this video is over. To put it more succinctly, our metaphors, maybe all of them, emerge from our physical daily experiences. They are first embodied, literally, and then they become metaphors, and it is these metaphors that filmmakers use to subtly affect our interpretation of their films. You see, for well over a century, filmmakers have understood that viewers identify with the camera. Not exclusively, but primarily and predominantly, our experiences are wound up with the point of view of the camera. When the camera looks down, we, perhaps without realizing it, also look down. When the camera looks up, we do as well, not just physically, but psychologically. We don't necessarily think consciously about how we're identifying with the camera. It happens subtly, sometimes subconsciously, and the subtlety of our identification with the camera means that its power, and by implication the filmmaker's power, over us is increased. This is what is called cinematic invisibility. Cinematic invisibility refers to the automatic assumptions we make about images on screen based on the way we view them. For instance, if we view a character from a high-angle shot, we're going to have certain assumptions, emotionally, psychologically, and intellectually. And we're likely to not even think about these associations. They are invisible, at least they can be, to our conscious minds, even though they subtly impact our thinking. And these subtle associations brings us to cinematic language. Cinematic language refers to the systemization by filmmakers of cinematic invisibility, from something vague and amorphous into a set of conventions, norms, and practices. In other words, these conventions are a type of grammar for film. They articulate the assumptions that filmmakers and audiences can, and perhaps should, make about the film, its characters, plot, and theme, based on the director's choice of camera shots, lighting, editing, set, and decor. One way to think about cinematic language is that it's similar to grammar. Just as with any other grammar, with cinematic language, sometimes the most interesting choices made by filmmakers are when they break the grammatical rules of that language, or in this case, cinema. So let's take a look at some shots and how directors follow and break the rules of cinematic language. I'm going to use the 2000 film Meet the Parents, directed by Jay Roach, for my examples for this video. The first scene we'll take a look at is the fitting room scene, where Greg Fokker, yes, that's his name, is talking to his soon-to-be father-in-law, Jack. Greg is played by Ben Stiller, and Jack is played by Robert De Niro. Jack believes incorrectly that Greg has brought a marijuana pipe with him. In this scene, Jack's going to display a type of over-the-top anger at Greg. Greg's going to be frightened of him. Look for the way director Roach uses high-angle and low-angle shots to emphasize the power differential between the two characters and to reinforce the two characters' relationship with each other.
Danny, how's the tux fit?
Dad,
What's that?
oh, it's a sculpture I found in Greg's jacket.
This isn't a sculpture, Danny. This is a device for smoking marijuana.
Really? Not mine. It's not. Oh, hey, Jack. How you doing? Like the top hat. It compliments you.
Can I talk to you for a minute? Sit down. Did I not clearly explain the circle of trust to you, Greg?
Yeah, I think I got it.
Then is there something you want to tell me?
I don't think so.
Didn't we have a discussion yesterday in the car about this?
Oh, yes. You mean me and Pam. Yes, I would love to talk to you about
We're
that.
not talking about Pam, Greg. We're talking about you. See, if I can't trust you, Greg, then I have no choice but to put you right back outside the circle. And once you're out, you're out. There's no coming back.
Well, I would definitely like to stay inside the circle.
Well, then tell me the truth.
Okay. Jack, I don't know what we're talking about.
All right, now look, Fokker. I'm a patient man. That's what 19 months in a Vietnamese prison camp will do to you. But I will be watching you, studying your every move. And if I find that you are trying to corrupt my firstborn child, I will bring you down, baby. I will bring you down to Chinatown.
Okay, so in this last scene, we saw how high-angle and low-angle shots are used to establish relationships between characters and to subtly reinforce how we as viewers are supposed to feel about what's going on in terms of the plot, the character development, and the theme. Jack is in a position of dominance, Greg is in a more submissive position, and the high-angle and low-angle shots reinforce this and help to tell the story. Notice also how these camera angles are over the top, exaggerated, ridiculous even. In my opinion, and this is just my interpretation, their exaggerated quality heightens the comedic effect. They're so over the top that it just reinforces how much Jack is suspicious of Greg. Notice also how the camera angles in this previous scene are part of an ensemble of techniques. For instance, blocking, meaning the positioning of the characters, and acting work hand in hand with the camera angles. And then finally, you'll see in this previous scene that there were over-the-shoulder shots. Over-the-shoulder shots imply identification with the character, but they're not the same as direct point-of-view shots, which we didn't see in this scene, but we will see in the next, where we see things directly from one character's point of view. So let's go ahead and go to the next scene, which I'll introduce now. In this next scene, Greg is going to be trying to grab hold of Jinx, the cat. Jinx is Jack's cat, but as we'll see, things don't go as planned for Greg. In this scene, watch for direct first-person point-of-view shots, as I just mentioned. Look for counterintuitive uses of high angle and low angle shots. So in the previous scene, we saw intuitive uses of high angle and low angle shots. In this one, we'll see counterintuitive. And then finally, we'll see an example of parallel editing, sometimes called cross-cutting. It's not really the focus of this video, but it's an interesting extra footnote. So without further ado, we will watch the next scene.
Come here, little Jesse head. Oh. Jinxie cat, I won't hurt you.
The fact is, Greg lied to you.
He did not lie to me,
He
Dad.
lied to you when I thought you should know the truth. I love you too much to see you get hurt.
I don't care what your information says, Dad. Greg took the MCATs, okay?
ได้ครับ
ผมอยากกินกับที่จางไว้ครับ
สำหรับกี่ท่านครับ
สำหรับลูกสาวและสามีโต
ใช่ครับ
รับรองเป็นห้องสวีทใช่ไหม
ใช่ครับ เป็นห้องสวีทพร้อมเตียงคู่ครับ ขอโทษครับ
ตกลงอาหารใช้
ใช่ครับ รวมอาหารเช้าด้วยครับ
ไม่เป็นไร
ครับ เราจะทำอย่างดีที่สุดครับ
อะไรนะครับอะไรนะครับอะไรนะครับ
เราจะทำงานนะครับ
วันละ2 สัปดาห์
หาห้องให้ครับ
อะไรนะครับอะไร
ผมได้ห้องที่สวยมากเลย
อยู่ลูกเก่าครับ
ไม่มีครับผมเอาเลยครับ
รับรองเป็นห้องสวีทใช่ไหม
ใช่ครับ
กับกลุ่มกับสวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ
โอ้
It was a bad day for Greg, to be sure. In this previous scene, we observed several eyeline match cuts. So what is an eyeline match cut? Well, a match cut is where two shots are connected together with something that matches in both shots. So, for example, you can have match on action cuts or graphic match cuts. Here we have an eyeline match cut, meaning that the first shot shows us someone's eyes, and the second shot shows us what that person was looking at. Eyeline match cuts don't necessarily imply first-person point of view shots will follow, but that's often the case. Let's take a look at some more eyeline match cuts. This is a particularly humorous example of an eyeline match cut. Greg is looking at a bathing suit he's not especially excited to wear. Early in the film, Jack looks down on his soon-to-be son-in-law, Greg. You can note that it's a low-angle shot establishing Jack's dominance. And then we have the eyeline match cut. Now we're looking at things from Jack's point of view, a high-angle shot down onto Greg. Notice the curtain, which reinforces the first-person point of view. The scene we just watched also had a counterintuitive use of camera angles. When Greg's looking down from the roof with this shot, he's losing control of the situation. But that loss of control is being represented counterintuitively by an extreme high-angle shot. This shot is also a first-person point of view shot. Let's take a look at a couple more first-person point of view shots. Here's one from early in the film when Greg starts to learn about Jack's secret life. Notice the interesting use of low-key lighting. The dark shadows contrast with the rest of the film. Later on, there's a really good example of a first-person point of view shot. We're looking at things from Greg's point of view in the pool. Notice how the blocking of the other three actors positions Greg separately from them in isolation. The rule of thirds is too complicated for me to get into right now, but essentially it breaks down an image into three sets of three, horizontally, vertically, and in terms of depth. The rule of thirds is used by filmmakers in any number of ways, and it's a useful way to analyze films. For instance, consider how the division of this shot in terms of depth reinforces Greg's isolation from Pam's friends and family. Okay, I promised to tell you about Dutch angle shots. Here we go. Dutch angle shots are basically shots that are tilted or askew. They imply something is not quite right, or a sense of impending doom. There's a very subtle one near the beginning of Meet the Parents, just as Greg is starting to learn there's more to Pam's family than meets the eye. If you look at this shot, you'll notice a very slight tilt. That's a Dutch angle shot. Well, this concludes my video. I hope you learned something about cinematography and about how we as viewers identify with the camera. Be sure to watch Meet the Parents. It's a great film.